today I'm announcing 4 new roles for principals and teachers in New Zealand schools and investing an extra $359 million into teaching and school leadership over the next 4 years. These are changes that will benefit kids across New Zealand because a high quality teaching leads to better achievement and better schools.
The 23rd January announcement by John Keeve of major new investment in schooling took most observers by surprise. After years of contentious policy, the government seemed intent on seizing the initiative. Indeed, initial responses to the PM's announcement were largely enthusiastic.
If these roles support and enable schools to better collaborate, then we believe that's a really good thing.
It's super. What a game changer. What a tremendous thing.
It's hard for me to say it, but I'm pretty damn impressed.
The policy does not stand in isolation. There are a number of other pieces that are currently in play that give the new roles context. Some of these are also new and still not clear in their detail. At the centre is the familiar National Standards Policy, which forms the engine of the reforms, enabling the Ministry to more tightly monitor school performance and accountability, a goal emphasised in this Treasury report of 2011. Certainly, the new compliance and reporting demands of ERO put national standards at the centre.
We got it communicated with an email link. My understanding is that they are more focused on the national standards, and it shifts the whole view about what actually is a good school and what is actually, and it also narrows a view of curriculum to the 3 areas that the national standards focuses on.
Overseeing this performance-based system will be the new body EduCans, which replaces the Teachers' Council. All members of the new body will be appointed by the Minister. None will be elected from within the profession as they are now. Moreover, it's proposed the new body will introduce a new code of conduct for the profession, similar to that governing the state sector.
If that was to occur, that would have some serious implications because it would effectively make us state servants rather than public servants. And as public servants, our primary duty is to the public that we serve, which is, in this case, the children that we educate. And I think that the day that we could not critique policy, which will directly affect the lives of children, would be a really sad day.
At an even more fundamental level, the government's quietly setting in train a review of the Education Act in 2015. Part of the teapot deal between National and ACT, and described as clearing red tape from schooling, the Minister's review team will soon report back, and the timeline will only allow 2 weeks of public consultation before legislative designs begun.
I think we're likely to see some quite significant changes in the way in which New Zealand schools are run. The fact that it's all being done behind closed doors in itself is concerning. If this is about our public education system, then it needs to be open. It needs to be much more open and democratic in the way in which these processes are undertaken.
It would have been great to see some of our sector leaders being able to keep us well informed and asking us as they go through, bit by bit by bit, where do we stand, what's our opinion on it, is it going to move our sector forward? I think it's important that our parent communities know and understand that this is happening, and I truly believe at the moment they don't.
Another policy development that makes up the education reform landscape is a review of funding, signalled by the Minister during a newspaper interview. While she asserts nothing will occur prior to 2015, Ms Parata did indicate interest in the value-added funding model used in the US, where funding allocation is based on school achievements against national tests or standards.
What we've had for many years in this country is the notion that you fund schools based on need, and based on the notion that children who go to schools without the social and cultural capital of children who go to wealthier schools deserve a hand up from the state. Now, what you get with the notion that you can reward schools based on achievement is you will end up with richer schools getting richer and poorer schools getting poorer.
Aside from the validity issues of national standards and the variability, even within the same decile there are significant differences between schools in terms of composition and who comes to them and transience rates and all those things that impact really seriously on outcomes. So it's not even valid or fair to compare schools within the same decile.
So the new roles introduced by the Prime Minister, creating a new echelon of trainers and managers, must be seen alongside the other components of reform.
The first new role is an executive principal.
Executive principals will oversee a cluster of around 10 schools. There will be 250 of these appointed, who will each be paid an extra $40,000 annually. Change principals, whose job it is to turn around underperforming schools, will be paid an extra $50,000. There'll be 1,000 expert teachers who will be freed from their own classrooms to work in nearby schools for 2 days a week. They'll receive an extra $20,000 annually. Within schools, 5,000 lead teachers will be appointed to mentor others within the school. They'll receive an extra $10,000 annually. All appointments will be made from outside individual schools, with the exception of the change principals, where local boards will have some input. The immediate response of NZEI and overseas experts to the initiative was that creating new levels of management was not the best basis for a $360 million spend-up.
We're talking about poverty, we're talking about health, we're talking about housing, all those out-of-school factors that really impact on children and their families, their ability to be well and ready to learn.
Your Prime Minister said, and I quote, "A mountain of evidence shows that the quality of teaching inside the classroom is the biggest influence on kids' achievement," unquote. Now, every researcher in the Western world will tell you that's not true. The power lies in outside the school factors. If you look at the variation in scores of kids on tests, roughly 60% of that is explained by out-of-school factors. Roughly 20% of it is explained by in-school factors. And of the in-school factors, you do have leadership, curriculum, lots of other things, and teachers. Now, that's a lot. Teachers can have a huge impact on schools and kids, but I'd rather put my money on some outside-of-school factors.
Both parents and teachers were quick to point out that there are better ways to invest inside schools.
This is just being pushed through with no say from the teachers, the parents that are actually going to be affected by it. The money could be much better used, funding for more teacher aides, really getting more hands in classrooms, reducing class sizes, a lot more support for teachers.
There's 101 things that could have more directly affected the lives of children in schools. You know, more teacher aides in classrooms, more speech language therapists, more educational psychologists, specialist programs for kids that are struggling, better truancy services, better delivery of services from special education.
These teachers we are calling...
While those promoting the package believe it will raise teacher quality, others see the measures as having a different focus.
The creation of the super roles are not about rewarding teachers for what they're doing in the classroom. They are about creating new classes of management, and the extra money is for those roles. It's not about rewarding teachers for the work that they are currently doing in classrooms. It's not about rewarding better teachers. What's also clear is that the kinds of teachers that will be recruited into lead teacher positions are those teachers who are doing well at delivering national standards achievement results in literacy and numeracy. So we're not going to end up with lead teachers providing advice around the rich curriculum.
The analogy would be the All Blacks. You know, they're the #1 rugby team in the world, but they still bring in the scrum coaches, they still bring in the outside expertise.
Both the PM and the Minister have emphasised that the package is an attempt to increase cooperation across the sector.
It doesn't even follow the basic principles of good collaboration, because collaboration to work has to be kind of grassroots driven. It has to have ownership, for starters. No, the sector has not got ownership of this policy because it was not involved in the development of it. The rhetoric is about collaboration and sharing good practice, but the underlying agenda seems to be far more about controlling the sector and embedding unpopular policies.
I guess one of the other worrying aspects about the new class of managers placed across schools is that they provide a much greater possibility for the Ministry of Education to control what's happening in schools and to make sure that the national standards agenda and everything that it stands for is implemented thoroughly across the country.
As more consideration has been given to the new initiative, many school boards have come to understand that their independence and effectiveness may be threatened.
It takes away from boards some of the lines of accountability. With boards are going to be very, very fuzzy and very confused. We've been told that the employment relationships won't change, but it seems hard to see how that won't when you've got a principal of another school coming into arguably your school to discuss with you or share with you how you might do things differently. Now, if there's an area of disagreement, who's responsible to who?
The fact that the executive principal, expert teacher and lead teacher roles are appointed by an external body further complicates employment relationships, especially when two of these roles are part-time. Many within the sector see the potential for widespread disruption of schools. In April, NZEI members met throughout the country to discuss the new roles and the wider issues surrounding them. Overwhelmingly, they instructed their executive to take a principled approach to any engagement with the ministry around the new roles. At the heart of this is the understanding that child poverty and inequality are the central issues facing schooling. In discussions with the ministry, NZEI is to require evidence that the new roles will benefit children directly and demand that the process be transparent and collaborative. In keeping with the NZEI's long-held position, none of the new roles nor their resourcing are to be based upon national standards data. Any new roles are to be negotiated within the collective agreement and subject to member approval. The government is expected to report back during May with a claim to incorporate the new roles into the collective. In preparation for this, individual schools need to prepare by discussing the issues as a staff, with boards and communities, so that they can respond to government quickly and clearly and do what's best for our children and for our schools.